This week's episode is brought to you by Tony and Megan Miller. Thank you, Tony and Megan Miller. It's with the generous support of listeners like you that helps keep our mad scientists here at the Whole Rabbit so incredibly mad through the continued consumption of genetically modified gold-infused carrots, which conduct energy through the laser capacitance gel platelets infused into our bloodstream by sanguinary engineer robots from the future. If you'd like to help keep our blood lasers charged at lethal capacity or just hear the second half of this episode, please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you the extended version of this episode, but all our episodes, stretching back into at least 2 prior dispensational eras, which are now conveniently integrated into Spotify. But that's not all. I'll send you a 5x5 vinyl sticker of our Big Bunny cover art at no additional cost, and you'll get the secret keys to our Discord server, where you can talk about your experiences aboard the mothership. This week's episode is dedicated to our beloved show host Heka Astra, who, as a resident of Vancouver, Canada, is facing homelessness, along with her cat Ziggy and her faithful Shiba Inu Hidetaka. As you may have known, Canada's cost of living and homeless problem, especially in Vancouver, has spiraled out of control and is now threatening Heka. Just this month, Heka's landlord has served her with a 2-month eviction notice, which just a week later sent her only roommate moving out in the middle of the night, leaving Heka to cover the entirety of the rent. Heka has nowhere to go, and besides us, no real support network. Please, if you have anything to give to help her in this dire time of need, please check out the GoFundMe link at the top of this show's description. Anything you have to donate would be a tremendous help. On this week's show, we discuss 2 of the best documented incidents of alien abduction from both the United Kingdom and the United States. In the free section of the show, we discuss the bizarre tale of police constable Alan Godfrey, who was abducted while on patrol duty in 1980. Godfrey had recently been investigating a mysterious murder which, all things considered, probably occurred on board a UFO. In both cases, numerous witnesses were able to corroborate these unlikely circumstances and are reflected in official records. Then, in the extended episode, we explore the claims of the famous abduction of Travis Walton, a logger from Arizona who was zapped and then taken aboard a flying saucer in front of no less than 6 of his coworkers and friends. What happened on board? Tune in to find out. We also discuss how another UFO abduction featuring green gas may have turned a conservative family into a bunch of hippies, and what that might have to do with angels, empire, and the Elizabethan founder of MI6, Mr. John Dee. Thank you, and enjoy the show. What if you were a renowned prison escapist, but really you had just been regularly abducted by aliens and then had to live up to the hype?
Like they abduct you and then when they drop you back off, they like drop you outside the prison.
Yeah, and then you get away. Every time they catch you, you're like, I'm not great at running, but I can escape real well. And then that's like your whole claim to fame. But really, you've just been getting anal probed the whole time.
It'd be a good movie. Also, like, you know how people say that their cameras won't take pictures of these things happening and stuff. So it's like, even in a high security prison, like the cameras would all go out every time and all the security guards would just be like, we don't know how he does it. All the cameras go out and then boom, he escapes.
Maybe that's what happened to Epstein.
And the security guards that were watching those cameras were asleep.
The aliens put him to sleep. That's what happens. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we don't just tell you that UFOs and the men in black who intimidate the people who witness them are shape-shifting foxes of Japanese mythology. Nay, we open up our shirts and let the blinding flash of alien neutrino particle beams strike us directly upon our bare chests, which not only works better than hot wax, but gets us on board the UFO itself to observe what strange procedures are carried out on their unwitting human specimens, because this week we're discussing true stories of alien abduction, specifically the case of Police Constable Alan Godfrey and Travis Walton of the Fire in the Sky Inspirado. I'm your host, Hack Rabbit, also known as Luke Madrid. This week I'm joined by the miniature muffin macerator, Mari Sama.
Nom 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 nom.
The man beast with a mission, Malachor 5.
Objective complete.
And the hottie of the heavenly helicopter, Heka Astra.
Hello.
Because of some ongoing personal catastrophes and a dire shortage of time to produce content democratically, I have taken this golden opportunity to open a continued and ongoing investigation into UFOs, the spooky bug-eyed occupants that pilot them, and what they want from the human race. I promise we'll get back to Tarot and Aleister Crowley someday. Go ahead.
I don't. Hopefully sooner than later, because by now you guys should know how I feel about talking about aliens.
This week, I mostly focused on two of the best documented cases of alien abduction. First, from the United Kingdom, with the case of police constable Alan Godfrey. And secondly, from the United States, with Travis Walton, which share a number of interesting details and occur around the same time period. Back when people were still breathing fumes of leaded gasoline and serial killers roamed the streets.
Yeah, and when David Bowie landed and was rocking on Earth.
Have you guys seen The Man Who Fell to Earth?
Yes.
I need to see it.
There's like an alien sex scene in there where they're like spinning around in what looks like milk.
Interesting.
It's very strange. Plus, it's the only movie you actually see David Bowie's junk in.
Oh.
And I don't mean Labyrinth.
Funny you should bring that up, Heka, because before we get into our main stories, our first, albeit a short one, comes from UFO researcher Bud Hopkins, who, born in 1931, first made his chops as a painter, doing abstract impressionism, which won him national acclaim. Well, Bud is a full member of the National Academy of Design and even an award recipient from the Guggenheim Fellowship for painting. Bud is also well known, or even better known, for his work as a UFO researcher, where he has interviewed countless cases and offers hypnotic regression to abductees. He throws like little support groups as well. He has like a big plate of cheese. You drink beer and hang out and talk about your experiences.
Ooh, cheese.
Beer.
Flesh.
Wait, what?
Huh?
Eggs. Describing himself as a humanist, Bud sees his work with abduction victims as a way to bring attention to an otherwise marginalized part of society. As he tells it, many of the people who are discredited in the mainstream media are sincere, and the harder you dig at their cases, the more credible their stories become, not otherwise. Introduced to the concept of UFOs through Orson Welles' 1938 radio program, The War of the Worlds, he, like many others, was terrified by the broadcast, and cites it was this initiating experience that likely colored his perception of aliens from then onward. Likewise, Bud Hopkins' opinion regarding the abduction cases he studies is more of an alarmist variety rather than a spiritual one, likening many of the abductions he has documented to sexual abuse of some variety, further claiming that nothing good would ever come of said encounters. He describes victims' experiences as severe and nightmarish.
According to Wikipedia, while both men and women reported to Hopkins abductions by aliens that included sexual encounters, allegedly for some form of extraterrestrial eugenics. Women in particular seem to be a part of the highly technological colonization scheme. These victims were reportedly taken to spaceships impregnated by extraterrestrials, then later, as the hybrid baby developed, returned to the ship to have the fetus removed and given up to the alien parent. The alien parents purportedly had the ability to communicate telepathically with their child. On occasion, according to victims' reports as told by Hopkins, the human parents were allowed to see their human-alien hybrid or transgenic children. Once a victim, according to Hopkins, abductees were powerless over the intrusions and susceptible to additional kidnappings, which may extend to their human children. Quote, if people had one abduction experience, unquote, Hopkins said, then they will have others. So basically, if you're abducted and you are part of a genetic program or a fertility program with them, they are not likely to leave you or your progeny alone.
Naturally, Bud Hopkins helped popularize the notion of alien encounters existing as repressed memories, or substituting memories of traumatic encounters as something else entirely, which has entered the mainstream lexicon as the David Lynchism, the owls are not what they seem.
I remember that movie.
This is the idea that if you had a spooky experience with usually white-faced owls, it may have actually been grays, and your memory is substituting that so you're not traumatized. Or maybe it's something that the aliens themselves have imposed on your consciousness.
I'm very uncomfortable.
But there's also just owls that exist, they're not all aliens.
No.
Well, birds are actually government drones. They're not even real.
No.
Well, I rest my case.
Why am I always I am not working for the government.
No, not you. You're not an owl.
Yeah, but you insinuated I'm lying about them. It's like, no, there's regular owls. It's like, what if that's the alien's persona?
You're a little defensive there,
Oh.
Maury.
I mean, who's to say? We don't know.
Give us back our eggs, Maury! The following comes from a PBS interview with Bud Hopkins as he recounts memorable cases where he's provided support or guidance for the victims.
Hopkins says, here's a letter, a woman writing about her child. She was so concerned. Her daughter is 3 years old. When she was putting her daughter to bed, the little girl cried and said, I want to hide. And the woman asked, why? And she said, I'm hiding because the little people are going to get me. This really frightened the mother, and she asked, what happened with the little people? The mother then wrote, she told me they come into her room, take her outside, that they have big eyes, and that she went up into the sky with the man. I asked, what happened up there? And she said, they took me to see the doctor. The next day she saw her mother was sitting there. On the TV, she saw a cover of a book about abductions with the face of an alien. The little girl jumped to her knees, pointing at the TV, shouting, that's them, Mommy, the people. She covered her eyes and said, I'm scared, Mommy. I've never seen such fear in Nicole before. Within that same week, she drew many faces with only very large, dark eyes. I also noticed at that time, while undressing her, 3 tiny raised pin-like marks near her navel and the same under her left nostril. That same day, she also had a pretty bad nosebleed. This is freaking me out. Since all this occurred, every now and then, she mentions other things such as, they take my jammies off, they hurt me, etc. I realize you receive many letters of this kind, some of which are phony, but believe me, this is not made up. If this is all really happening to my little girl, please give me some advice as to how to help her deal with these visitations. I know you're a very busy man, but please, perhaps a short response to my letter may ease my anxiety a little. Mr. Hopkins, could this really be true? Thank you. Sincerely.
Then Bud says,
there's no way that one can read these letters without responding. And the idea that something like that is made up by a publicity seeker or whatever, as skeptics like to say, is just absolutely absurd. I've worked with some of these people afterwards, referred them to other investigators, and I think we've brought some relief for them in helping them explore what really did happen in their lives. This story freaks me out personally, reading through it, because I've had those 3 pin marks and like a perfect triangle that showed up after sleeping.
What?
One of them is actually scarring. Like I have it right now. I sent pictures to Luke, but it's like on the inside of my arm and it was directly over my vein.
yeah, that was pretty weird.
Luke, why did you have me read this story? You're a sadist.
Maybe just a little bit.
That's why when I go to space in like my astral form, I take a bunch of weapons and tools with me.
Phased plasma rifle in the 40-watt range.
The only reason why I noticed the triangle marks on my arm is because it felt bruised. You know how your arm feels after you get blood taken, where you get a shot? So it felt like that, and I was like, why does my arm feel like that? And there was like a little bit of bruising with it as well. I feel really bad that this is happening to a little girl.
As we'll see, this serves as a bit of an introduction to these more well-documented cases, which have similarities. By taking a closer look at them, maybe we can find some answers. One reason I brought up Bud Hopkins is because our other stories seem to suggest that the intentions behind these abductions may not be totally malicious. Bud Hopkins tends to think they're unethical at best.
I don't know, this stuff just freaks me out. But for anyone that's curious that has Discord access, maybe if you remind us once the episode is released, maybe I can post the pictures?
Will do. We'll pin them up.
Okay.
And if you have strange marks on your body from alien abduction, we'd like to see them.
As long as they're work safe, because I work here at the Whole Rabbit.
Keep your hairy nipples to yourself. Now, to get into things, our main story begins 17 miles northeast of Manchester in Todmorden, England, a peaceful market town known for its railroads, farmland, idyllic green landscapes, and more recently, its abundant UFO activity, where it accounts for more than 10% of sightings in the British Isles. But why? Today, the town is also known for successfully implementing public gardens and abundant fruit trees, which are openly available for public consumption. However, during the Bronze Age, there is evidence to suggest that ritualism, especially funerary rites, were popular around Blackheath Barrow, a ring cairn that indicates the 4 directions and offering an abundance of funerary urns. Naturally, the site has been identified as an archaeological hotspot. Following this theme, the name of the town, Todmorden, is thought to either be a combination of the German and French words for death, or, relevant to our discussion last week, a term meaning marshy den of foxes. As we've discussed recently, funerary sites, marshes, and not least of all, foxes have been speculated to correspond to the presence of strange lights in the sky, at least the Japanese mythology. In the case of Todmorden, however, the phenomena we're discussing today doesn't just involve strange lights in the sky, but full-on abductions, which may have even resulted in the death of an innocent man, which would change the small town and one of its investigators forever. From summer through fall of 1980, countless reports of strange lights in the sky were phoned in to the Todmorden police, but despite regular follow-up investigations, nothing definitive was ever discovered. That is, until the afternoon of June 11th at 3:45. Trevor Parker was entering his father's coal yard near the Todmorden train station when he happened upon the body of a man situated spread eagle atop a 10-foot-tall coal heap. Shocked by this discovery, Trevor phoned for an ambulance which arrived 30 minutes later, along with 2 police constables to investigate. One, Malcolm Agley, and the other, Alan Godfrey. It wouldn't take long for the 2 investigators to realize that something about the entire scene was very wrong. For starters, the 10-foot-tall coal pile upon which the corpse was situated showed absolutely no signs of disturbance. This means that whoever this man was, or whoever killed him, got atop that pile of coal without disturbing as much as a pebble.
Whoa.
Stranger still, his hands and footwear displayed no signs of coal dust, which is pretty weird.
It's like he just got teleported to the top of that pile.
How did he get up there? Did they use a crane? What was it?
Did the coal kill him?
Maybe it was Santa. Investigators also found it quite odd that the dead man's clothing showed prominent irregularities. For instance, his zipper was down, his shoes were untied, and despite wearing a suit, he was missing a shirt.
What?
And this can happen with bodies that have been left for a long time. The shirt can desiccate, but that was not what was going on in this instance. Upon closer inspection, Godfrey noticed burn marks on the back of the man's head and neck, which looked to be smeared in an unknown gel-like substance. Almost like he got burned and then some burn cream got put on it.
Huh.
Maybe lubricant, who knows? Around 9 p.m. that night, an autopsy was performed, which uncovered some interesting details. Firstly, the strange markings on the back of his head and neck were thought to have been made by a hot or corrosive liquid no less than 2 days before his death, while his beard showed no more than 1 day's worth of growth.
Weird.
It would soon be discovered that the body was that of a 56-year-old miner by the name of Zygmunt Adamski, who was a resident of Tingley, which was over 38 miles from where the body was found. He had last been seen leaving his residence at 3:30 p.m. on Friday, June 6th, 5 days earlier on his way to a local shop. With his wounds being no less than 2 days old before his death, and his beard only being a day old, it left investigators wondering the conditions under which he was missing. Was he tortured, but also had amenities to continue shaving? This led to some wild speculation. Had he been kidnapped? If so, by who? An enemy? Maybe the KGB? Whatever it was, Adamski was ruled to have died from a heart attack, which came as no surprise to his wife, who identified the body, and Constable Alan Godfrey, who both were witness to the terrifying, twisted look upon Adamski's face when he was found, suggesting that he likely had been frightened to death.
Whoa.
That's an interesting conclusion to come to. I mean, it can definitely happen. That's interesting.
Godfrey would later lament that he would never forget the look on Adamski's face. He said, "Those eyes were staring up at me. I was looking down on him from a foot away. Those eyes sent shudders down my spine. They were wide open. He had the look of someone who had seen something or someone that had scared him to death." While numerous proceedings were carried out, nobody was able to ever figure out what happened during the 5 days Adamski was missing, and forensic scientists had no clue what the mysterious gel on his wounds were composed of. To this day, the disappearance and death of Zygmunt Adamski is still unsolved.
That's really creepy.
With so many UFO sightings and no answers forthcoming, the public began speculating that Zygmunt Adamski had in fact been abducted by one of these otherworldly craft. In just 6 months, it would be Alan Godfrey's turn, and no less than just 1 mile from where Adamski's body was found. The same Alan Godfrey who investigated Adamski's supposed kidnapping. It was a rainy Friday night, the 28th of November 1980, when, just before midnight, the Todmorden police station received a call from the residential council estates that a herd of cows had been wandering around the houses in the area and causing a bit of a nuisance.
A nuisance.
Now, on this night, Alan Godfrey, who hadn't been on duty all that long, drove over in his cruiser to check out the cow nuisance. On his way to the estates in question, another report had come in regarding the roving cows that were continuing to bother the residents, but by the time he arrived, there were no cows to be found. He drove up and down all the adjoining avenues, but no bovine buddies could be seen anywhere. Assuming it was a prank, Godfrey radioed into the station to report on the situation, but when he did, he was informed that a third resident had called regarding this band of troublesome cows. When Constable Godfrey arrived at the estate in question, the old lady who lived there gave a curious account of what she had seen. According to her, she awoke to find 5, maybe 6 cows grazing in her garden, and they were making quite a bit of noise. Afterwards, she headed downstairs to call the police station from her phone, which was situated on the window ledge facing out towards the front of her house where the commotion was happening. No sooner had she put down the receiver than an incredibly bright flash of light was seen emanating beyond the window. Once the light had subsided, she looked again outside to discover the cows had, well, all but vanished. When she was asked if she was certain about these details, she replied excitedly,
I know I'm old, but I'm not bloody senile.
Assuming it had been nothing more than a car with high beams that startled the cows, Godfrey returned to the station quite frustrated, having spent quite a bit of his time searching for the small herd to no avail. Eventually, the rain abated, and by early morning, a dark, low cloud hung over the town. Around 5 a.m., just as he was finishing up some paperwork back at the station, Godfrey's colleague announced he was headed home an hour early, and the two left the station together. His colleague headed out on foot to the nearby police flats, while Godfrey hopped into his cruiser to patrol the town center. When he arrived, he spotted another officer on foot and offered him a ride to both get him out of the, quote, chilly air and to give him some company during the final hour of his shift. The officer kindly refused, and Godfrey announced that he was off to take one more whack at finding those bloody cows. Oh, he's gonna find those cows. It was around 5:10 when Godfrey left the town center, and just a half mile or so down Burnley Road, approaching Fernie Lee Road, he spotted a large object blocking traffic just a few hundred yards down the way. At first, he thought it was nothing more than the staff bus taking police officers to and from work, but he knew it was a bit too early for that, and besides, he had seen the bus behind him at the town center. Curious about what it could be, Godfrey continued down Burnley Road only to discover whatever this thing was, it was blocking the entire road. As he approached, he slowed the car to a crawl and inched forward until the object had taken up his whole windshield. He began asking himself, what the hell is this? To his amazement, this bizarre diamond-shaped object, which he estimated to be about 20 feet in diameter and 14 feet tall, appeared to be hovering just 5 feet above the pavement and spinning slowly in an anti-clockwise direction. Staring in amazement, he noticed a dark paneling on the upper half, while the dome on top emitted a fluorescent glow. Although he was stunned at first, he eventually activated his hazard flashers and put his blue police beacon atop his car. Whatever this thing was, it made no attempt to pull over or roll down its windows. When Godfrey tried radioing the nearest station with both UHF and VHF radio, he found himself unable to get a response of any kind. Unsure of what to do next, Godfrey first thought of returning to the station to fetch backup, but decided to stay put for a moment and procure a sketch of whatever it was he was looking at. As he sketched, he noticed the trees on either side of the road were swaying violently, but he later stated that no vibrations or noise could be detected coming from the craft itself. As he sketched the object, suddenly there was a bright flash of light, but when he looked up again, the object had vanished. Stranger still, Godfrey was now parked 50 to 100 yards further up than where he had been parked initially. Totally dumbfounded, Godfrey turned his car around and drove back to where he knew he had been parked, only to discover that, despite the rain, this section of road was entirely dry. Shortly after, a bus drove past which corroborated this particular patch of road was in fact bone dry, when it obviously shouldn't have been. With someone else to confirm this strange detail, Godfrey began to feel a sense of escalating worry and vulnerability. Unsure exactly what to do next, Godfrey jumped into his car and began driving back to the station when he spotted Constable Malcolm Agley as he was finishing up his morning patrol. Godfrey, a bit unhinged, began shouting for Constable Agley to get into the car so he could relate to him what happened and maybe show him the spot where it occurred. Although Godfrey was a bit riled up, Agley also found the giant dry spot to be truly bizarre, and stranger still, he noticed the ground was even a bit hot to the touch, which was totally uncharacteristic for a damp, cloudy morning in the cold of late November.
It's weird.
Besides the heat radiating off the pavement, Agley could not help but notice there was also a strange swirl of leaves about the spot and suggested they check nearby to see if anyone else had witnessed whatever it was Godfrey had seen. Naturally, the pair looked toward the business closest to them, the Center Vale car park, and resolved to check inside despite the front gate being locked shut. In either case, it was still worth an attempt, and both men climbed over the gate to have a look. Unfortunately, it seemed while no humans were present, there was something else that the pair could not explain. As they shined their flashlights, the beam fell upon a large beast ambling in the darkness, and just as quickly, more would emerge from the shadows. It was the missing herd of cows!
What?
The same ones Godfrey had spent the whole night searching for, and strangest of all, how are they suddenly locked up behind the gate of a car park that had been closed since the evening prior? Frankly, it just didn't make any sense.
The hell?
When Godfrey shined his light into the adjoining building, he couldn't help but notice it was, well, later than it should have been. According to Godfrey, there was about 25 minutes of missing time he could not account for, and besides that, one of his boots appeared to be split right down the middle, which made absolutely no sense. He certainly hadn't cut his boot in half, jumping a fence or wandering around a grassy parking lot.
What?
At first, Constable Godfrey was reticent about sharing his experience, but the next day, 5 officers who were attending some situation in the moors above town told him they too had seen a strange object emitting light near where Godfrey would experience his strange incident just an hour later. Police Constable John Porter described it specifically as being a very cold, steel blue light, like Zoolander.
Blue steel.
After hearing this, Godfrey felt comfortable enough to make an official report in great detail about what happened to him, but he would soon regret it. Sadly, it wouldn't take long for his peers and even superiors to begin turning this tall tale into an opportunity to make fun of Godfrey, whom the office had begun referring to as Captain Kirk.
Oh, man.
Ouch.
That's why people don't want to talk about this stuff.
It sounds like these British police folk are pretty straight-laced and don't have time for this kind of nonsense. Much to his chagrin, the teasing continued long after another witness stepped forward named Leonard Smith, a school caretaker who that same morning saw a bright light zigzagging over the area where Godfrey's experience happened. So despite the hard time they gave him, this is why it's considered one of the better documented cases. This guy has multiple witnesses of all sorts of weird stuff happening in and around that evening. Eventually, a Harry Harris solicited Godfrey to undergo hypnotic regression to hopefully discover more information about the period of missing time, and Godfrey agreed. Under hypnosis, Godfrey remembers getting out of his police car to approach the mysterious object hovering above the road when he suddenly was blasted with a beam of light that zapped him right in the chest. A detail that other abductees would report. Afterwards, he remembers a sensation of weightlessness as he was taken into the craft. At that point, everything went dark, and Godfrey remembered coming face to face with a tall humanoid figure with a beard who telepathically spoke to him, identifying himself as Yosef.
What?
According to Godfrey, Yosef exuded an aura of comfort and even felt like somebody he had met before. Yosef then directed Godfrey to lie down on an examination table. As Godfrey lay perfectly still, 8 small beings with bulb-shaped heads and large black eyes appeared and began performing what could only be called medical experiments on him. This went on for some time until Godfrey began to show signs of distress, which prompted the strange beings to stop their examination, telling him they feared he would suffer a heart attack. Is this what happened to Zygmunt Adamski? Interestingly, Travis Walton, a famous abduction case from America, was also missing for 5 days after undergoing a psyche-shattering event during his experience. But we'll talk about that soon. Unfortunately, Alan Godfrey faced so much ridicule from his colleagues that he eventually felt as if he was being pushed out of his profession. He eventually resigned. Following the wave of popular UFO interest in the 90s and UFO abduction cases became an interesting thing to talk about on television, Godfrey found himself beset with invitations to share his experience on multiple programs and eventually wrote a book, Who or What Were They? To this day, Alan Godfrey's stories are one of the best known and well documented cases in the UK. For you Seinfeld fans out there, there's a section during Alan Godfrey's hypnotic regression where he's recounting the doctor gesturing for him to get on the table, and the person doing the interview is like, "Are you gonna get on the table now?" Which is kind of a leading question. And Godfrey replies, "Not bloody likely." And the next thing he says is like, "Okay, I'm getting on the table now." And the interviewer's like, What happened? Why are you getting on the table?" He's like, I have to. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like whatever these beings are have the ability to penetrate your mind and get you to do stuff. And it's possible that his urge to even get out of the car was part of that enchantment, because he doesn't remember getting out of the car. It's right at the moment he decides to get out of the car that his memory is like totally wiped.
Like a glamour effect, like vampires use?
Yes, or fairies.
Okay, well, say like you are talking to your holy guardian angel and you just, have that in your magical repertoire and you walk around and live like a normal human, right? But when you need to survive, it's almost like a automatic response that might kick in and you just like go into holy mode and you just survive. Like sometimes that might be like the baseline of what the idea is talking about without going too occult about it. But maybe sometimes your HGA does take control of your body, and it's those times where you don't know why you're doing good for yourself. It's like everything just seems to be going well. I don't know. I guess that's the idea in its thought,
One thing that does correspond to that, we're going to talk about Travis Walton shortly, but years after his famous abduction experience, he said, and he didn't want to talk about this, that he woke up in the middle of the night and found himself running. And he woke up running, like, what's going on? And he was in his son's room, whose head had become wedged between the mattress and the metal framing of his bunk bed, to where he couldn't scream, he couldn't breathe, and if that had continued for just a little while longer, his son would have been dead. And Travis starts tearing up. He has no way to explain how that happened. It's almost like what you said, his holy guardian angel just took over and then saved his son. And then I was thinking, well, okay, we don't really know what these beings are. If they happen to be our offspring, bajillions of years in the future, perhaps they're coming back and visiting their own ancestors. And of course, you don't want their kids to die because then you don't exist. So it's hard to say, are they our holy guardian angels? One thing I really liked about the Rian Johnson film Looper is that, spoiler, the protagonist is interacting with himself in the future, which means that anything that he does, his future self is able to remember and then respond to in real time. And so perhaps that's what these beings are. They know everything we're going to do because it's in their genetic or racial memory or historical record of some kind. But then you get into that whole time loop situation where they have to do what they're doing in order for things to continue as they are.
I have a theory that aliens are future humans using time travel to come back. I mean, could be.
It could be a lot of stuff. It could be your magic angel. It could be some bug. It's gonna do stuff to your body that you don't want to happen,
Oh, mantids?
I don't know. A long list of experiences and different stories. It's kind of hard to seriously research alien abductions with like full coverage, I guess, to say that's not just like some Reddit post or something.
It's always an anecdotal story. I mean, I had a lot of trouble too. Like when we did out-of-body experiences and near-death experiences, it's kind of the same thing as like most of the data is anecdotal. It's stories that people tell.
Now, even Alan Godfrey questioned his own hypnotic regression. I mean, he is a cop. cop after all, and, you know, he wants to stick as close to Occam's razor as he can. And so even he said, well, because of my experience, I had been reading about Betty and Barney Hill. So it's possible that because I was reading about their famous abduction case, that some of that leaked into the hypnosis, and I was just recounting what they had said during their hypnotic regression.
Oh, what a letdown.
But it's also like you said, where it does seem like there's a vested interest by the powers that be to block and obscure and muddy the entire conversation. They have some reason for doing it, but we're not sure why. I like to think that perhaps they don't know what's going on, and so they don't want us speculating, basically.
Yeah, but speculation is part of the scientific process.
I agree.
And there's even some part of us and our gut feeling, though, that informs us that there is something to be known. And as we mentioned in a previous episode, I think that's why so many people had empathy for Tiffany Gomez, because that look in her face when she's pointing at the people on the airplane.
I'm telling you, I'm getting the fuck off, and there's a reason why I'm getting the fuck off, and everyone can either believe it or they cannot believe it. I don't give two fucks, but I am telling you right now, that motherfucker back there is not real.
I want to know why he's not real, though.
Okay, I want to share a little bit of what I've found out since then. Maybe we can talk about current events right now in regards to that case. So from what I understand, when she went public and gave her apology, she mostly apologized for cursing in front of the children. But when people went and looked up the business that she's supposed to be associated with, they traced her IP and it went back to an Army recruitment center and the DOD. And so it makes you wonder, did Tiffany actually know something that she had been briefed about or had inside knowledge of? And whatever she saw on that plane was a sincere threat? Perhaps. And then, of course, the internet is comparing her face in the apology video to the woman who's having her freak out, and about half the internet is convinced, like, that's not the same woman. Did they disappear her? What's the deal?
And, you know, I also found out something kind of funny, is that Carrot Top was on the plane.
Okay, that explains it, because that motherfucker is not real.
That's true. Like when I went to Vegas at one point, I didn't go to his show or anything, but I saw him in person and he looked real fake. Like he did not look like a human. He's one of those people that freaks me out because he does kind of look like an alien.
I mean, he's on steroids, obviously, and then also he has those big wide eyeballs with the whites around the, like you can see the whites all the way around the iris.
No, it's not just that though. There's also something about his skin.
It's called being a ginger, but yes,
No. And it's a lot more noticeable in person. It's really weird.
Is he really orange?
He's a ginger, but like there's something weird about him and his skin and his, I don't know.
Okay.
His hair looks plastic.
Forgive me if I'm wrong, but doesn't he have a cameo in one of the Men in Black movies? Isn't he like a punchline in one of those movies?
Probably. It's about the right time for that.
We'll get back to you guys on that one.
Is that just a nod?
I just the final thing I'm going to say here is I like how this puts a nice bow on our Easter basket because bunnies and Carrot Top make so much sense here. Far enough down the rabbit hole, you just find Carrot Top Laboratory.
And there's like a million clones of Carrot Top.
Now, Mel, didn't you have some more information about that flight that Tiffany Gomez was pulled off of?
Well, what I was reading on Reddit was, and I saw some video links, is that at least one other video showed one person getting taken off the plane as well by security. But I didn't bother to look into it further because then, shortly after that, I clicked on the next link and it was Carrot Top. And I think I just shut the case.
So maybe she really did see something that shouldn't have been sitting there. And if she was related to the Department of Defense and was in the know, well, perhaps she knew for a fact that there was some alien being on board that could cause a threat to the flight.
Did they follow the money of the person in the video that they posted that they're saying is not the original girl? Or did they follow the money of the girl in the video from like her air flight logs or some shit?
Well, what is weird is that the woman who says she's Tiffany Gomez, who went on Twitter and gave her whole apology on Instagram and all that, her first Twitter friend is TMZ, which is bizarre because it was TMZ who broke the story, right?
Yeah, it's a op.
Yeah, it could be a psyop for sure.
Carrot Top psyop, go.
We don't know what's real. You have to admit that you don't know what's going on before you can actually start researching the stuff.
And then to kind of update the audience on the threads I've been following regarding 370, the Malaysian Airlines flight that went missing, those debunks are not that good. And maybe I'm biased at this point, but it seems like when those debunks came out, it was like, okay, this conversation is over. It doesn't matter what you say from this point. We're going to use emotional reasoning and make fun of anyone who continues to research it, because the more they look into those videos, the more legit they seem. And we're still not exactly sure what happened, but apparently there were 20 Chinese scientists associated with superconductivity that were on that flight. And like, where are they now? Did they go missing? Like, people are speculating that perhaps it wasn't non-human intelligence, but it was some sort of black book technology that was used to kidnap all the people on that flight, and they're like on some secret military base getting paid out to stay quiet, and their families are benefiting from it, and they just have to hang out, you know, on the secret base for like 15 years and sign NDAs and all the rest of it. You know, maybe Tiffany Gomez didn't want to live like that. Maybe she already had a nice house and she didn't want to get disappeared by a bunch of UFOs. Maybe she was in the know about what happens to aliens or Chinese scientists on aircraft. Maybe she knew something that she shouldn't have.
I don't know, dude, because if you're testing technology, you need expendables. So it could be a test that teleported them to somewhere where they could not survive. You don't know. You don't know where it went. And the argument that there's a flash when the airplane disappears. There's a flash. Oh, it's associated with a virtual effects pack from like the 90s. Okay, but apparently file forensics looked at the file and it was modified recently.
Yes, it was. They put modifications onto those video effects files and they're like, oh, see how they line up? Like mostly okay. And like they don't match their descriptions in the PDF. And there is definitely some afoot there.
The pilot had the flight simulator data on his computer that was scrubbed, and then it came back, and there was a new modification date when the CIA released it after looking at it.
In reference to what you were just saying about the flash being tampered with or the effects being tampered with, I personally think that it's not unusual for experiences or incidents of high strangeness to have things just suddenly disappear. And let's say, just speculative kind of theorizing, let's say that maybe it's a government release, maybe it's something related to that, or someone wanted to leak the footage, but if it just actually vanished into thin air, like just poof, gone, then it's not as flashy, it's not as fantastical or believable almost as something that has like a flash out of existence instead of disappearing. So maybe it's an actual real video, but the flash was added for some reason or another to make it seem as though something more tangible happened to it, as opposed to immediate sudden dematerialization or teleportation.
Well, some speculate that the video effects were added by the people that submitted this footage to a private organization to analyze the data, and then if it got leaked, they would know who leaked it.
That makes sense.
Now we're getting really paranoid, you know, like that's like, but it's also very intelligent to do that, because then you could plug the leaks.
Right, because then if it did end up getting out, then people could be like, well, it's not real because of that flash.
Yep, psyop.
But generally speaking, it is pretty common for situations like that to just have dematerialization, vanish into thin air. Even poltergeist, people see apparitions. There's even Bigfoot sightings where they just vanish. They're suddenly not there.
That's the universal dimensional shift. When the timelines get changed, you're seeing things fade in and out of reality.
But if you'd like to hear a bit more specifically about Travis Walton, the inspiration to the 1993 film Fire in the Sky, please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you the entirety of this episode, but all our extended episodes going back over 3 years. It's now conveniently integrated into Spotify, so you can just pull open the app and listen to the whole episode. I'll send you a 5x5 vinyl sticker of our Big Bunny cover art, and you'll instantly get the secret keys to our Discord server, which is a safe space for talking about alien implants and how your boot got split in half while looking for cows.
Oh.
Thank you, everybody. Eat carrots, look out for Carrot Top, and shoot lasers.
Pew pew.
Pew, pew, pew.